This week, I've brought together a collection of answers to some of the essential spiritual questions I often get asked. Now, these questions are ones that have been answered by many wise people. However, in my experience and from what I've heard from many people, the answers to these questions in some cases can create further confusion, a sense of self-judgement, or even send you heading further away from a sense of your innate integrity, your beauty, and your wholeness. So what I'm bringing you here is a non-personal perspective, which I found blends the human and spiritual in a way that invites simple, profound self-understanding and an ease to the ongoing journey of growth and deepening in our connection to who we really are. So if you've ever asked yourself the questions, who am I? What do I want? Should I get rid of my ego? Am I responsible for creating my own reality? Why am I suffering? How can I find happiness? How can I be free? If you've asked yourself any of those questions, then stay tuned for this episode and let's dive in. Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. If you're looking to improve your life, to heal, to grow and mature as an individual, but maybe you found that some of the personal development and consciousness stuff has given you the impression that you need to be super serious and vigilant to get anywhere meaningful, or feeling like maybe you're just not up to snuff. Well, this show is here to remind you of your humanity, and in fact that's where your true joy and brilliance lies. With over 25 years of experience in the transformation biz and having developed MPA, one of the world's simplest, pressure-free approaches to growth and well-being, if I do say so myself, I'll be sharing tips, steps, and insights that'll help you navigate all the aspects of life as a growth-seeking being. On this show, it comes to you with a good dose of humour, maybe a smattering of colourful language, a reminder not to take things so personally, and most importantly, to be kind to yourself along the way. Make sure you hit that follow button, and let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. I'm delighted that you're here. We are at episode number 129, which means you can find the show notes if you go to www.beabrillianthuman.com/129. That's the numbers, it'll get you there. Now, this is an episode that I've kind of been wanting to do for a while. I'd written some mini blogs here and there answering these questions, and I wanted to kind of share them in an audio format with you, so to go through them. And so I want you to think of this in terms of a bit of a meditation, really. In fact, we're going to have a chime between the between the thoughts. As I said in the intro, these are questions that are answered all over the place by people who have their perspective, which is a wonderful thing. And I sort of haven't really brought them together in one go, I suppose, to offer them to you, certainly not in audio form. So throughout, I kind of reference things because I'm giving you a non-personal perspective. There's so much to MPA. There's the MPA process, there's the philosophy, there's the various courses that I offer that sort of highlight different areas. And there's a few things that I reference. By the way, if you're new here and you're going, I've just searched, what's NPA? What's he talking about? Well, it's a simple 6-line spoken word process is how most people meet it that helps you stop taking things personally. But as I've just said, underneath the bonnet, underneath the hood, there's a deep philosophy that is rooted in quantum physics, spirituality, and being human. And that's what I hope that these answers will bring, is that blend, because I think many of the answers I've heard to these questions tend to actually polarize things, which we'll cover as we go through it. So as I reference things, I'm not going to go into the different URLs of every little thing that I mention as we go through it. But if you go to www.thempaacademy.com, you can find most of what I referenced there. So I'm talking about the free sheet. You just need to hit the Quick Start MPA button. If I'm talking about advanced training, so anything that's to do with MPA philosophy, you'll find in the advanced training. We've basically got basic training. If you want to kind of get to know MPA really well, you can download the sheet for free there from the Quick Start. But then you've got the basic training, the advanced training, which goes into more depth. And certainly if you're a change worker of any kind, it'll help you figure out how it works in practice. And then we've got our mastery, which is our full-on certified practitioner program. And that's where you really, we really dive in there. And also I might mention on this lot, the Boundary Bootcamp, which is really focusing on helping us have strong, healthy boundaries, which I think is so essential in this world. And of course, that course has an MPA spin on it. And also, I might mention at times in this, it's really good to get help, which I firmly believe in. If you want to have one-to-one help in an MPA style, you can get that with me or some of our already certified practitioners. If you go to the mpaacademy.com and just see the thing that says sessions or find a practitioner, you'll find the information there. Fantastic. By the way, today's episode is also sponsored by the Harmony Equation, which is actually an event that's coming up. If you listen to this at the time that it's published, it's coming up pretty soon. It's one that I do reasonably regularly, I'd say, because I think it's a wonderful introduction beyond basic training to MPA. And it works with, I offer something called the Harmony Equation, which is part of the integration frame. A kind of specific MPA technique for working with conflict, and it's fantastic. And by the way, at this point in time, it's probably the only way you can get access to me live without paying for the one-to-one sort of premium price of that. So if you want to get some one-to-one time with me, then come along to the Harmony Equation. I'd love to see you there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by our sponsorship slot. Have a listen about the Harmony Equation, and then we'll take you into the contemplations in answer to the questions. This episode is sponsored by the Harmony Equation, our live online workshop where you get to discover the world's simplest tool for resolving conflict and help your clients find harmony. Now, if you've got clients that seem stuck, blocked, and unable to move past certain issues, then chances are they have unresolved conflict, and the approaches you've been using so far haven't hit the spot. Well, you're going to love this event, and you and your clients will love the truly unique, powerful, and effortless way you can guide them to the resolutions they need once you have this tool in your hands. In fact, the work you'll learn at the event is so magical, I use it with nearly every client. As Ronnie, a previous attendee, says, you've created something very special and made it a simple and effective tool to cut out the complexities we add to our lives. The work you're doing really resonated with me and the work I'm now doing with my clients. So if you're a healer, a therapist, a coach, or do any kind of change work with clients, then this is an incredible tool to add to your skill set. So head over to www.thenpaacademy.com/harmony and grab your spot today. That's thenpaacademy.com/harmony to get all the details and join the Harmony Equation today. Who are you? The answer to this, if you inquire deeply, is a very fluid thing. Even the most spiritual or enlightened of answers are temporary notions of self that come and that go. And even those as they arise are only part of the truth. What causes us pain and suffering is an attachment to and defense of a transitory idea of who we are. MPA offers a multiple perspective approach which can bring a great deal of fluidity and relief to your sense of identity. In plain language, it gives you the grace to acknowledge that you are many things. This self-understanding contains inherent forgiveness, peace, love, and the ability to be truly intimate with yourself and with others, which is much yummier than separation and suffering. And making MPA part of your spiritual and personal growth practice gives space for this self-understanding to truly come alive in you, as well as bringing other yummy shifts in awareness along the way. If you want to start bringing that into your life, the MPA process is the place to start. What do you want? If you ask yourself anything, ask yourself, what do I want? Whenever you have a tricky situation where there are inevitable consequences to your decision, come back to you. All you have is you, whatever the outcome. Perhaps you feel like this is selfish, especially where others may be impacted. But if you don't honour what you want, in the end, you don't honour those others. And of course, what you want may in fact truly take into consideration the impact of others. But it's worth getting really clear on and really understanding what you get from that. And also, when it comes to others, that ultimately you have no control over their feelings or responses. Most of the time, I find things run smoother when you get clear on you and let go of how that shit manifests. A classic example is when your partner isn't measuring up to your expectations or desires. Get clear on what you actually want to experience and put your energy and focus on that. If you can communicate that to them really clearly and ruthlessly honestly, they have the option to honour their authenticity. They can look at whatever they perceive as their blocks and wants to become that if it's in them, or they can decide that's not for them. This is some scary stuff, but all other options in the end take the path of passive control, manipulation, hiding, compromise, and ultimate dissatisfaction. So to start with, what do you want? Should I get rid of my ego? I'm not a fan of the word ego. I prefer to think in terms of personality. Ego's got a terrible rep and brings up all sorts of ideas that aren't necessarily helpful. So let's talk about personality. As human beings, we're all encumbered by personality, a complex mix of identities, each bringing its prism to split the infinite light of you into the shapes and colours that are your unique expression, each necessarily a limitation on your incomprehensible hugeness, each an anchor into this body, this form, this vessel of human experience. Each identity knows itself to be false, frightened, and fragile, subject as it is to death by transformation and awakening, the forces of evolution. At times, an identity, a part of you who you have thought you were and claimed yourself and life to be, will find itself between the millstone of those forces. Rarely will that be an easy process for you. Rarely will it be comfortable, and rarely will that part of you go without a fight. Be gentle and compassionate with yourself at these times, my friend, and remember as best you can that love and a deeper connection with your divine is at play. Am I responsible for creating my own reality? When you think you're responsible for all your experiences, remember there are bigger forces playing a part in them. It's a comforting notion that you are an independent being who thinks their own thoughts and creates their own reality. It supports the illusion of personal control, but it's certainly not the whole story. As individual human beings, we're subject to the consciousness of which we are all a part, the collective human consciousness. You could say that each human being is a cell in the body of the human being. In the same way that every cell in your body is affected by what you eat to some degree, in the same way that every cell in your body is affected by your emotional state, and in the same way that injury in one part of the body affects all cells in some way, we are all individually affected by the experiences of the human collective consciousness. So maybe give yourself a break from your inner spiritual achievement junkie who thinks its personal thoughts are entirely responsible for creating your reality. It can be great to set an intention to go sunbathing, but if it's pouring with rain, it ain't going to happen. Doesn't mean you can't have a nice time. just that there are bigger forces playing a part in your experience. So it is with the weather of human collective consciousness. Some days, no matter how sunny you intend to be, you're going to need to have an umbrella. Why am I suffering? A core principle in MPA philosophy is the cycle of experience. In a nutshell, experience is drawn, it's experienced, and then passes. There's a natural flow to this and a neutrality about what that experience is. In other words, there's no distinction between what is labelled positive or negative experience. The mechanism of the cycle remains the same. Experience here can be thought, emotion, sensation, or circumstance, and mostly, of course, it's a blend of all of those. Once an experience has been drawn, in other words, attracted, the cycle of experience is invoked. It is here to pass through by its being experienced. While clearly the flavour of these experiences can vary in terms of their comfort or discomfort, the additional element of suffering is determined by the degree to which we disallow its natural flow through the cycle. Metaphorically, we have an entry door and an exit door, and if either of those is closed in relation to an experience, then the flow is inhibited, which creates suffering. People are often surprised when I tell them that MPA does nothing in terms of the experience itself, and that all it does, and what it's absolutely brilliant for, is opening the doors. And yet, when you understand the cycle of experience, that it is the nature and the point of life, then you understand that opening the doors is the key to a magical and full life experience. That doesn't mean the absence of pain or challenges, but it does tell you that suffering is optional. Now, if there's suffering in your life, start opening the doors and use MPA. Now, often people say, when they say, "What do you do for a living?" I'll often say, "I'm a doorman." Perhaps you understand why. By the way, I'm an excellent doorman, and if you want me to be your doorman, then go and check out my one-to-one sessions. And also, now that I have the privilege of training other people to be excellent doormen or door people, if you go to the Find a Practitioner area of our site, you can find someone other than me who'll be an excellent door person for you. How can I find happiness? Happiness isn't always about smiling and jumping for joy. Sometimes happiness is a sense of inner relief, or a settling of something that's been turbulent, conflicted, and seemingly unresolvable inside. When you're twisted up inside, it's easy to get fixated on some external circumstance having to happen as the only route to happiness or peace. Inner lockdown, lodged in body, fear and pain restricts your inner and outer vision, such that it becomes hard or impossible even to see any other route to happiness than that thing out there changing, exactly as you want it, even if a higher part of you knows better. Of course, sometimes what's truest and most aligned is to do that thing, or lay down a boundary for another so they have an opportunity to get clear if honouring it is aligned for them. But if that thing in and of itself creates its own conflict, or doesn't have a full and open-hearted yes, then there's more inner work to do. In my experience, this kind of lockdown shows up when really deep core pain surfaces. The mind activates core survival strategies to protect you from the core pain. It's always been its job. But if it's twisted you in worse knots now, that tells you that the strategy has outlived its usefulness and the medicine has become the poison. At this level, it's time to get somatic, into the body and feelings. You're ready to face the tangle of emotion and mind and separate the wheat from the chaff through direct feeling. The mind will do everything it can to keep you paying attention to it, but the mind, just like the heart, is ultimately looking for softness, safety, and a resolution that will end the pain. While there's much you can do on your own, nothing beats having someone else to hold that space for you, especially someone who understands and knows how to help you stay with yourself as you walk through your personal valley of the shadow of death. Facing this depth of pain can seem terrifying, but after years of walking people through their valley, I know it can be easier and quicker than you think, and the impact is so deeply life-enhancing, a settling, a relief, a directional shift that changes everything. Happiness. So if you're feeling locked down and twisted up, get some help. Someone who can hold that soft yet steady guiding presence for you and walk you into freedom and happiness, whatever that looks like for you. How can I be free? The trite answer, of course, is you are free. But that doesn't really help with where this question comes from. A sense, a feeling, or an idea of not being free. Like there's some box you're contained in, and somehow that represents limitation. So here's the thing. All form requires a boundary. For there to be something, it must have distinctness. It must have an edge. Anything is a box of sorts. Your body is a box. Your house is a box. Your relationships are boxes. Your dreams are boxes. Every tree and flower and teardrop is a box. Every experience is a box. A package of life defined. They all have their edges, their boundaries. The skin cells, the bricks, the values and agreements, the clarity of imagination, the bark, leaf, stem, petal and root, the salty meniscus. These are the lines drawn that define who and or what they are. Some lines are changeable, some are fundamental to the form. Without the edge, without some container, without definition, there is no form. They become no thing, nothing. When you fear and fight the boxes of life, you fear and fight life itself. You long for boxlessness, boundlessness. You long for formlessness, the domain of death and the beyond, of experiencelessness, of numbness. And while you're alive, this fear and fight is just another box anyway. No box is a prison unless you make it so. No box is permanent. All boxes can be nurtured or destroyed, valued or disregarded, honoured or defiled, cherished or neglected. If you make the nature of boxes themselves your jailer, you will scream for freedom your whole life, yet always be enslaved. You will thrash at any box you see and destroy many that only after the fact you realized you loved. A lover looking for deeper commitment, perceived as another jailer, brandishing a box, a cage, a taker of freedom, triggers the blind rage of box phobia, and the relationship is smashed into 1,000 pieces like a cherished china teapot hurled at the wall. The tea of promises have nothing to contain them anymore. Perhaps it's repairable, but certainly that would be a long and painstaking job, and who would bother if once repaired, it would only again be perceived as a cage. Kinder, more joyful and freer perhaps, to dance with the boxes of life. Understand that life exists only through the grace of form, of boxes. That life is a forest of boxes through which you take a stroll. Open your heart and eyes to the boxes you live with. There are boxes you can throw away, and there are boxes that lend themselves to evolution, expansion, and transformation. Those boxes you would love to stay, those people, relationships, things, dreams, nurture them, respect what gives them their integrity, their form, clear, strong boundaries. Some rigid like bones, some soft like tissue, some ephemeral like breath. In the end, yes, you have no ultimate control of when things pass, but in the meantime, the boxes of life are not your jailers. They are your dancing partners. They are clear edges you can touch so you might experience connection. Honor, love, cherish, dance, tussle, and play with them. For what else is freedom for? Thanks so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this show, I'd love you to do me a solid and tell someone about it. They can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and most other podcast platforms. Plus, if you visit the website www.BABrillianthuman.com, you can share the show notes to social media and make my day. Also, make sure you hit that follow button, and if you haven't yet downloaded the MPA process sheet, head on over to joelyoungmpa.com and get your free copy today. Big love, and see you next time.